Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, October 23rd, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about California's Proposition 50. Proposition 50 is an initiative based out of the state that would add an additional 5 seats to the Democratic Party in the 2026 midterm elections as a means of combating what the Republicans have done in the state of Texas and plan to do in many other states, as they've recently passed maps in North Carolina, Missouri, and they look to states like Indiana, Kansas, and Nebraska, amongst many others, to find redraws and new maps that would ultimately benefit the Republican Party in the 2026 midterms. Proposition 50 was a brainchild, a piece of the governor's office that made it through the state legislature and now is being voted on by the constituents in the state of California, that unlike all of the Republican grabs across the country, it will be residents in California that will be able to make the decision, do we pass a new map or not? In states like Texas and Missouri and the others that I've listed, Republicans just did it on behalf of the citizens, even if they were in complete opposition. The majority of Texas residents did not believe that the redistricting battle should have began in the state, and I'm sure many voters in California had felt similarly until the Republicans decided to follow through without any say from their constituents. Now in California, there has been a lot of conversation. Will this proposition pass? At initial glance, there was some hesitation. Some Democrats had looked at it and said, maybe this isn't going to happen. After all, Kamala Harris only won California by roughly 20 points, which obviously is a lot, but in a state that actually backed an initiative in 2010, just 2 years after voting for Obama by 30 points, they passed an initiative in 2010 that Proposition 50 seeks to temporarily repeal across the state. That proposition passed, I believe, Prop 11, might be a different number here, but in California, the point was that it passed a map, an independent commission that would draw maps for the rest of California's history, and it passed overwhelmingly. Both Democrats and Republicans were staunch advocates for the proposition, and it passed overwhelmingly across the state. And so there was initial hesitation in believing that Proposition 50 would ultimately end up passing in the way that we are expecting it to. And the most recent data point I think, contributes to it is that Proposition 50 has turned into a very, very nationalized war. What we know here is that 75% of those who are voting yes for Proposition 50 aren't doing it because they want to boost Democrats. They aren't doing it because they support Gavin Newsom. They aren't doing it because they decided one day, I don't want my representative to have, this many amount of representatives, whatever it is, or constituents. The point is that 75% of those who say they're voting yes say it because they want to oppose Donald Trump. And 70% say they want to oppose national Republicans. Proposition 50 has almost never been about the state of California. It has been about the California residents having the opportunity and ability to push back in a democratic way against what the Republicans are doing nationwide by brazenly stealing seats from the Democratic Party. And so 75% say they want to oppose Trump. 70% say they want to oppose national Republicans. And Republicans wonder why they're losing this battle. The only way they were ever going to do well on Proposition 50 is if more and more voters had said, this needs to end. But Republicans aren't ending it. You see, Texas was just the beginning. Republicans are now looking to Ohio, where they're expecting to gain 2 seats. They're looking to Missouri, where they already gained an additional seat. They looked to North Carolina, where just yesterday the Republicans passed a map giving them an additional seat. They're today going to Indiana, trying to do it there too. They're trying to go to Kansas to gain additional seats here. It is insane the extent the Republicans are trying to go to maintain their already slim House majority in 2026. And so Proposition 50 seems to combat that. Now, Texas already gave the Republicans 5, so you're already talking here a combined gain for Republicans around 10, so California would not mitigate it entirely. But it certainly would add to the Democratic Party's total number in 2026 if they weren't working at such a disadvantage like the maps have presented them for the 2026 cycle. But it is the lead here today, not just as much about why people are voting, but just simply how many people are voting to pass Proposition 50. Amongst likely voters, which again, this is a very much self-selected electorate. Think about the type of person who is a likely voter in a proposition election in an off year. You're finding that these are the most engaged, most angry, most enthusiastic voters, and that's why Republicans never really stood a chance. Because maybe if the low propensity voters that turned out in the presidential, you might find that with enough disaffected Democrats, the proposition might fail. But even then, Kamala Harris again won the state by 20, and we are in a very different day and age in Democratic politics than the former 2017, 2018 pearl clutching and, chest grabbing response to Democratic, response to whatever it is. Today, we see it being applauded. Gavin Newsom's approval rating, largely through his opposition to Trump, has increased across California. His stock on the national level has risen him from 8th place to 2nd place, and in some polls, 1st place in a 2028 presidential race. When you think about that just at baseline, Newsom's response to Donald Trump is what is satisfying the appetite, not just of California voters, but voters across the country. And that's why Proposition 50, as the first real stance that Democrats would have to push back against this administration, they feel it, they love it, and they are willing to pass it with flying colors. I want you to also understand, too, as I've mentioned multiple times in this video, Kamala Harris won California by 20 points. And I don't just say that to point it out as, oh, this is whatever. No, I say it to point out that a 20-point margin for Kamala Harris compared to a 24-point margin on Proposition 50, think about the difference there. A nationalized race, to the degree that it can be, only went to the Democrats by 20. Only went to the Democrats by 20. That matters. Because Proposition 50, Republicans were hoping that there would be enough nationalized, enough Democrats that would say, well, gerrymandering is wrong no matter who does it. But Republicans don't seem to feel that way, so the Democrats have adopted the attitude, why should we? Why should we sit idly by and allow the Republicans to walk all over us, all out of this idea of moral purity? Because what has moral purism ever done for the Democratic Party since Donald Trump has gotten into office? The genuine answer is lose elections. Now, obviously, that isn't to say there is no reason to stand by your moral convictions. Absolutely not. But when it comes down, and I think that a lot of the Democratic representatives that actually eloquently put this, it is that there are times in American politics where you need to fight fire with fire. And sometimes that happens in a redistricting battle. Sometimes that happens when you get a one-seat majority in the national level or in the state legislature. We've seen it in Minnesota, right? Great example of governing an effective Democratic majority of just a seat in both chambers. And Democrats pass, free school lunches for children across the state. They're expanding coverage on healthcare. They're boosting tax credits. You are finding that there are means to do it. And that is obviously a much different situation. But that's what's happening here in Proposition 50. Voters now have an opportunity to push back against Trump and renationalize this as a race. Because obviously everyone says, okay, well, Texas voters want this. But there's a reason they're doing it. They're not doing it to benefit Texas voters. Texas voters have been very clear in data survey through and through that they wish they would have had the opportunity to vote in this, and they would have voted no. Because that's what started this all. Without Texas, none of this would have even happened. It's sort of like when Thanos snapped his fingers. If X, Y, and Z didn't happen, the result wouldn't have happened too. This video wouldn't have existed. Right? None of these things would have been in conversation. There would have been no Prop 50. There would have been no conversation about J.D. Vance in Indiana. He probably doesn't, would have no reason to go to the state besides a fundraising swing in Carmel. And so when you think about why people do what they do and why all of these things have now come to be a much more partisan issue than they once were. Because I remember when Politico came out with the first poll from Prop 50, they had it losing by 30. And then the next poll had it up by 3. With 30% of the state undecided in August of 2025. Well, now it's October of 2025. Halloween is right around the corner. I need to buy my Halloween costume. We're reaching the final end of the 2025 cycle, and it looks more promising than ever for the Democratic Party that Proposition 50 is going to pass. And that's not because, people care deeply about their congressional boundaries in the state, but because they want to oppose Donald Trump, and that is the whole ballgame. And that what will be the motivational factor for why voters turn out in droves in 2026, why Quinnipiac today has Democrats up by 9 on the national level because Trump is down 10. There's reasons for this, and we will see it come to reality because now today, CBS News, among many, find the data that say that California's Proposition 50 will pass enthusiastically across the state. And mark my words, this could be an even larger margin than it was against Kamala Harris if these numbers are correct. To which we will only have to say, in about 12 days, we will see in California as the Proposition 50 results pour in and we start to see exactly how much Proposition 50 passes, because what we do know is that it will pass on election night in just about 2 weeks, and it will have an impact immediately on what the 2026 cycle will look like and boost the Democratic Party's odds quite a bit across the board. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.